Okay. We're live with a new streaming thing. I'm streaming from my new sound booth. And we're going to give this a shot. I don't normally like recording on stream. But I'm going to try it newly. And we're going to see if I we're going to see if I can take this. Now that I've got 8 audiobooks under my belt, maybe I won't be quite as nervous about it all. Okay. Let's give this a try. Here we go. Legacy Books presents The Nightblade Epic Volume 1, A Book of Underrealm. Book 1 of the Night... Nope. Levels are a little low. Try turning this up ever so slightly. It's that one, right? No. Yeah, it's that one. Legacy Books presents. There we go. That's better. Okay, so we're going to delete that. Legacy Books presents The Nightblade Epic Volume 1, A Book of Underrealm. Book 1 of the Underrealm volumes. Find all the works of Underrealm at underrealm.net/books. Okay. Books. Addendum A. Historical Essays from the World of Underrealm. Oh, shit. You know what I completely forgot about? Is recording some silence to use in editing. Underrealm, Nightblade Epic Vol 1, audiobook, silence recording, 30 seconds, starting now. Okay. Hello, stomach. Hey, what's up, Casey? No, we're recording. Recording an audiobook. Although there will be some clicky-clacky. Okay, here we go. Books. Addendum A. Historical Essays from the World of Underrealm. Of the 9 lands and the first High King. Many questions surround the 9 kingdoms of Underrealm, but let us begin with something simple, fundamental, a name that is an integral part of this world, the single thread through which all other threads of story are laced. Why is it called Underrealm? To the northeast of the 9 kingdoms is an ocean they call the Eldest Deep. It is the greatest of Underrealm's 3 seas, and its waters mingle with those of the Great Bay, where the High King sits upon her seat. In days long before the deeds of man were recorded in history, the time before time, as the people of Underrealm call it, ships appeared on the distant horizon of the Eldest Deep, bearing those who would form the great nation of Underrealm. Where did these ships come from? Why did they voyage across those vast, uncharted, and unchartable waters? No one remembers, nor do... Got a little mouth noisy in here. I have some lemon ginger tea. Vast, uncharted, and unchartable waters. No one remembers. Nor do they remember the names of the ships that bore these travelers, though most scholars of such things agree that the ships were 16 in number. Some say they fled a great evil and darkness, which hounded the winds that blew them. Others say they were exiles seeking new lands and a new life. Most hold the notion that the 16 ships were only the remnant of a much larger fleet. But as for how many originally set out from whatever distant land hold the notion that the 16 ships were only the remnant of a much larger fleet. But as for how many originally set out from whatever distant land sent them forth, who can say? One piece of lore that has survived the long centuries since is the name of the first High King, Roth. His lack of a family name is neither a fault of poor record-keeping nor a sign that he was a bastard. It is known that Roth threw off the family name with which he was born and forbid his subjects to speak it. This is a strong argument in favor of those who think he led a fleet of exiles. Roth was said to be a man of modest stature, but of overwhelming presence, so that none standing before him could but feel cowed and subservient. That would serve him well in a life filled with betrayal and war, but those tales are... Oh, I need a mouse pad in here. What is dinging out there? Hold on. All right, here we go. So that none standing before him could but feel cowed and subservient. That would serve him well in a life filled with betrayal and war, but those tales are many, and we only have time now to skim the surface of them. It was Roth who first set foot on the island of Southbreak, where now stands the capital of the kingdom of Dulmoon, and gave it its name. There he proclaimed himself the High King of Underrealm, the world beneath the world. That phrasing, as well as the fact that it has survived the more than 1,300 years that have passed since, gives us our first clue as to the meaning of the world claimed himself the High King of Underrealm, the world beneath the world. That phrasing, as well as the fact that it has survived the more than 1,300 years that have passed since, gives us our first clue as to the meaning of the word Underrealm. Wherever they came from before they found these wide and plentiful lands, in a very real sense, Roth's people considered it a place above their new home. Therefore, most scholars agree that the place of Roth's birth was a land far to the north, far across the eldest deep, and that Roth led his people south from there, flying away from their homes for some unknown reason, with little hope and no certainty of finding safety. Did I say it again, Casey? Filled with betrayal and war, but those tales are many, and we only have survived the more than 1,300 years that have passed since, gives us our first clue as to the meaning of the word Underrealm. No, I fixed it. Okay. And no certainty of finding safety. With little hope and no certain unknown reason, with little hope and no certainty of finding safety. But this tale has not gone untested, for upon occasion some bold or foolish captain will muster a ship and a crew, or sometimes even a fleet, and sail off across the eldest deep, hoping to find the lost lands from which Roth came. And yet it seems that some force wishes the humans in Underrealm to remain there. No such voyage has ever been attempted, but was waylaid by sudden storms and waves, forcing the ships to turn back. And whenever Ah, yes, the delays of the Chromecast. And waves, forcing the ships to turn back. And whenever any captain has been reckless enough to press on through the thunder and the rain, they have never been seen or heard from again. Some sailors across the 9 lands shrug and say, mayhap they found what they were looking for. Mayhap they found the lost lands, and now live there in wealth and plenty. But the seafarers of Dulmoon, that great kingdom of sailors, always shake their heads at such talk, and mutter into their cheeks of elf magic. The island of Southbreak would in time become an ironic joke, for it is in fact one of the northernmost lands in all the 9 kingdoms, but Roth did not know that when he landed there. He at once began to settle the island, where no humans lived to resist him. For a time he made his capital in a port city on the island's north... Oh, that's annoying, Casey. He at once began to settle the island, where no humans lived to resist him. For a time he made his capital in a port city on the island's northeastern shore, which he named Kingsmouth. But immediately he sent out scouts to locate a more suitable place for his throne, and soon he found it, a nigh impregnable mountain upon which he built a city worthy of bearing his name. So Rothden came to be built, and there the king of Dulmoon has ruled in unending lineage until this very day. It would be nearly a millennium before Underrealm's capital would be moved to the High King's seat, the island city in the great bay just off the shores of the kingdom of Selvin. And during all those long centuries, Dulmoon was by far the greatest of the kingdoms, and its citizens had no reason to believe that would ever change. Even as Roth strengthened his position upon Southbreak, he sent forth armies, under the command of the generals and admirals who were his kin, to explore the lands that surrounded his island and conquer them. First they mapped the edges of the Great Bay, including the island that would one day be... Have a quick apple slice. Oh, mom. A little bit of tea. And that's the tea, sis. Were his kin to explore the lands that surrounded his island and conquer them. Nope. Were his kin to explore the lands that surrounded his island and conquer them. First, they mapped the edges of the Great Bay, including the island that would one day become the High King's seat. Then they landed and made their settlements upon those distant shores, and built many war-lights so that their supply lines would remain strong. The greatest of these were Brecker and Alphos, which still stand today upon Dulmoon's western sea border. Southbreak had been uninhabited when Roth landed there, but the other lands of Underrealm were different. With 3 regional exceptions, the humans who dwelt in the 9 lands were no match for the steel and war machines of Roth's armies. Only in Idris, Feldamar, and Hedgemond did Roth's kin fail to conquer swiftly and surely. All other humans fell at once before their onslaught. But the 9 lands held a host of other creatures who fought bitterly to keep humanity from wresting away control of their homes. Control of their homes. That was a fight they were destined to lose, but the fires of those wars burned far and wide and long. Where there were mountains, satyrs threw javelins and fired arrows from high places where humans could not climb. Upon the lakes and rivers, wurts swarmed from the water to... Friend of the wild. Threw javelins and fired arrows from high places where humans could not climb. Upon the lakes and rivers, wurts swarmed from the water to drag human ships under the surface and drown the sailors who manned them. In the forests, imps fought with bitter poison to stop those who would fell their wooded homes. In the grasslands of Wadeland, the proud centaur nations united to throw back these new invaders. Other more bestial creatures were less organized, but no less dangerous. Many a scouting party would vanish in the night, prey of a wandering vampire. Harpies were most common in the mountains, but dwelt in many rocky places, and struck with a savage fury that knew no compromise or reason. Karoks lived alone and could be reasoned with, but if angered, in their bare forms they could rend whole armies to corpses. 1,000 such creatures plagued the conquering human armies. Most terrible of all, dragons were not uncommon in those days, and if they felt that humans drew too near their mountain strongholds, they would come screaming from the sky, without warning, but with roaring, deadly fire. I hear a plane. Oh, I need a mouse pad so badly. I'm screaming from the sky, without warning, but with roaring, deadly fire. And then there were the elves, wordless, deathless, devoid of fear, anger, or mercy. Not even the most rash historian doubts that, if they wished it, the elves could have stopped Roth's armies in their tracks and wiped all memory of humanity from the lands of Underrealm. Yet for reasons unknown, they stayed their hands. Much could be said of this, but it is a tale for another time. What is certain is that in the end, humanity won out, so that by the time of Lauren the Nightblade, most lands in Underrealm were under the unchallenged rule of humanity. The wars that shaped the realm lasted far longer than the life of Roth, the High King who began them. His remaining years upon Southbreak saw the conquering of Dulmoon, which he named and took for his own domain. The name meant moon travel, and referred to the fact that, while sailing across the Eldest Deep, he would point his ships every night to the place on the horizon where the twin moons set. Point his ships every night to the place on the horizon where the twin moons set. 2. His armies conquered Selvin, and its rule he granted to his sister, Renna, who was called the Sunmane, with the sole condition that she bow her knee to him. And it was Renna who gave Selvin its name, after her daughter, Sylvan, and because of the land's plentiful forests. Selvin's rich and bountiful lands would give Roth's armies the resources they needed to build the rest of the 9 kingdoms. Roth's gift of Selvin to his sister established a tradition that would stand the next 5 centuries. A kinsman of the High King who conquered a land was given dominion over it, and their rule would pass to their descendants forever. Roth's gift was also the indirect cause of his death. His eldest child, whom he had named Renna after his sister, and who would come to be known as the Blackheart, grew jealous of her aunt. Lip smacky. And who would come to be known as the Blackheart, grew jealous of her aunt. She thought that Selvin should have been gifted to her. She was her father's eldest child, after all, and had been the chief lieutenant of his armies under Renna Sunmane's command. When she heard of Roth's proclamation robbing her, as she saw it, of her rightful kingship, she sailed back to Southbreak at once. She sent word ahead of her arrival and begged her father to meet her on the docks of Kingsmouth. Burpy, burpy. Word ahead of her arrival and begged her father to meet her on the docks of Kingsmouth. It had been many years since he had seen her, and Roth did not know the anger that now twisted in his daughter's heart. Therefore he met her on the docks as she had asked, and he wore no armor, nor did he bring many guards, only relatives of his and Renna's, who he thought might wish to see her. Therefore, when Renna swept from the deck of her ship upon him with a war party, he was utterly unprepared. She slew all who stood beside him and cast their bodies into the Eldest Deep. But her father she kept alive until the last, and with a knife to his throat she demanded he rescind his earlier command, and name her king of Selvin. Roth spit in her eye, and named her Blackheart. "If you will not give me my..." King of Selvin. Roth spit in her eye, and named her Blackheart. "If you will not give me my aunt's kingdom, I will have yours instead," she said. And so she killed Roth, and cut off his head, which she would later mount over her throne in Rothton. It is a curious thing that she still called it that, the capital city that bore the name of her father. But she never changed it. And indeed, when she spoke of him at all, which was rarely, it is said that she seemed to regard him with no malice, but only with a little sadness, as though his death were a messy, unpleasant ordeal that might have been easily avoided, if only he had not been so foolish. Of course, her aunt, Rena the Sunmane, did not let this offense go unpunished, and declared her niece a kinslayer. That was the beginning of the first civil war to ravage Underrealm, though by no means the last. Many account of the first civil war to ravage Underrealm, though by no means the last. Many account Roth's proclamation as one of the most momentous events in the history of the Nine Lands. Had he named his daughter to the throne of Selvin, rather than his sister, it is easy to believe there would never have come the dark time of the Wizard Kings. Then again, many argue that without the War of the Sun, as it would come to be called, the Outland Kingdoms would never have been added to Underrealm's empire, and that the Tomb Kings of Idris might have reconquered their home, and all the other lands besides, leaving Roth's descendants clinging to a meager existence on Southbreak. But the tales of Underrealm are many and unending, and we must let this one be, for now. Okay, that is the first chapter. Now, for some reason, I am missing the next section from my manuscript, so I need to go fix that really quick. Be right back. All right. Nope. Okay. For now. Of the family Yeren. The Conquest of Feldamar. He said with his voice croaking. Of the family Yeren. The Conquest of Feldamar. The family Yeren is the last great family to have existed largely unchanged since the time before time. Hailing from the kingdom of Feldamar, they were a powerful force to be reckoned with, even before Roth began his war of conquest. The Yerens never sought to rule, but have long contented themselves with being the power and the coin behind many a throne. The matriarch Manya ruled the clan when Roth's forces first approached Feldamar's eastern borders and put their claim to the land. Feldamar was at that time ruled by a king named Kajina, and he summoned a great moot at once. The land of Feldamar has always been a hard land to conquer and to rule, for its roads rarely remain unbroken by rain and flood and earthquake. 1,000 lesser lords may be found in its dark and hidden reaches, each claiming a title more grandiose than the last. All right. And hidden reaches, each claiming a title more grandiose than the last. But when Kajina sent them word of a growing threat in the far east, they all came, and Manya herself arrived to witness the proceedings. As the king and his vassals argued over the best course of action, Manya saw, as if she were elf-touched, the skeins of fate unfolding before her. She had already sent envoys to inspect the size and makeup of Roth's forces. She knew that his ships were mighty, his armies were numerous, and all his warriors were armed with steel much finer than that of the land's current inhabitants. Were armed with steel much finer than that of the land's current inhabitants. Kajina and his vassals would mount a vigorous defense, but in time they would fall. Yet Manya knew that if she were clever, the family Yeren could yet profit from such a war. And so, in private, with only her closest advisers, she crafted a plot that would let her clan acquire prosperity as they never had before. And on the 6th day of Kajina's councils, she stood before the lords of Feldamar and pledged the family Yeren's support in the struggle against Roth. Yeren has never had powerful standing armies. Even in those ancient times, their military might was restricted to the soldiers who guarded their caravans, and they were loath to hire mercenaries. Therefore, their contribution to the war came in the form of financial aid, given in loan at terms that were very generous to the lords of Feldamar. given in loan at terms that were very generous to the lords of Feldemar. This emboldened the lords, who sent forth their armies in arrogance to cast back the armies of Roth, who had already landed on the coasts of the mainland and had begun to establish footholds upon its shores. But Roth's forces were powerful, and his generals were canny beyond the ability of Kajina's lords to outwit them. They pushed the Feldemarian forces back, swiftly routing them across the lands that are now the western part of the kingdom of Dolmoon. They were led by Roth's own sister, Rena Sunmane, who always led her armies from the front and laughed as she slew her foes, so that she became an elf-tail among the Feldemar troops, and threw them back in terror whenever she showed her face. In terror whenever she showed her face. Once the fighting reached Feldemar's jungle, the progress of the invaders slowed. The soldiers of Feldemar were now fighting in their own territory, in a land that was strange to Roth's armies, and they took one bitter stand after another, often on the thresholds of their very own homes. Often on the thresholds of their very own homes. Still, Rena's armies defeated them, but the battles became grim and bloody things, dozens of soldiers dying for every mud-slick pace of ground gained or lost. It was then that Manya took her next step. Of soldiers dying for every mud-slick pace of ground gained or lost. It was then that Manya took her next step. Kajina and his lords had begun to struggle in their payments to her, generous terms or no. Therefore she sent envoys to Rena Sunmane, and the two of them met secretly, face to face, as the month of Eunice ended and summer began. Manya told Rena Sunmane of her dilemma, and promised that she could deliver a swift and decisive victory over all of Feldemar, conquering the whole kingdom in less than a year. In exchange, Rena only had to promise to pay back the debts of the Feldemarian lords. This Rena did easily, for she knew that Roth's armies had discovered vast mines of gold and jewels in the kingdoms of Wadeland. This Rena did. Rena only had to promise to pay back the debts of the Feldemarian lords. Whoops. Rena only had to promise to pay back the debts of the Feldemarian lords. This Rena did easily, for she knew that Roth's armies had discovered vast mines of gold and jewels in the kingdom of Wadeland. The centaurs who lived there considered them worthless, and so they had given them up easily to the immigrants of Dolmoon. Rena knew that Roth, her liege lord, would easily surrender a portion of his newfound wealth to secure the conquering of another kingdom that would no doubt earn him even more. With the bargain struck, Manya returned to her clan and put forth her instructions. Suddenly, Kajina and all his lords found it impossible to wage their war. They had put too much faith in the family Yeren, and their supply lines depended in the main upon that family, which now withdrew its support entirely. Their troops starved, and soldiers will always desert a lord who can neither fight... Incorrect. Depended in the main upon that family, which now withdrew its support entirely. There it is. Depended in the main upon that family, which now withdrew its support entirely. Their troops starved, and soldiers will always desert a lord who can neither feed them nor pay the wages promised. Manya promised that Feldemar would be conquered within a year, but it was during year's end, only 8 months later, when Rena Sunmane raised her banners over the city of Dahab, which in those days was the capital of the kingdom. Kajina was the last lord of Feldemar to fall, cursing Manya's name even as his lifeblood dribbled out between his teeth, his breast pierced by Brethirschnif. His breast banners over the city of Dahab, which in those days was the capital of the kingdom. Kajina was the last lord of Feldemar to fall, cursing Manya's name even as his lifeblood dribbled out between his teeth, his breast pierced by Rena's sword. Section break. 2 seconds of silence. The Wizard Kings and the Dark War. Hundreds of years after the establishment of the 9 kingdoms, the family Yeren found another opportunity to increase their power, but in their greed they brought about the darkest chapter of Underrealm's history, the Dark Wars. Even in the time before time, the Yerens were the sole suppliers of mage stones, those most dangerous and coveted crystals that grant untold power to any wizard who consumes them. The secret of the mage stone's origins, as well as the technique of their manufacture, is the family's most closely guarded secret, and none have ever discovered it. Indeed, through the centuries, the family's leaders have put almost as much effort into concealing the secret as they have into increasing their family's wealth and power, for the one depends entirely upon the other. All that most agree upon is that the manufacture of mage stones must take place deep within the jungles of the Yeren's home kingdom of Feldemar. Oh, it gets hot in this booth. I tell you what. Their family's wealth and power, for the one depends entirely upon the other. All that most agree upon is that the manufacture of mage stones must take place deep within the jungles of the Yeren's home kingdom of Feldemar. It was in the year of Underrealm 432 that the family Yeren began to supply wizards with mage stones for the specific purpose of helping them secure one or another of the 10 thrones, the thrones of the 9 kingdoms and that of the High King. Of the 10 thrones, the thrones of the 9 kingdoms and that of the High King. Once of the 10 thrones, the thrones of the 9 kingdoms, and that of the High King. Once such a wizard king was installed, they were entirely dependent on the family Yeren for their continued rule. 2, if they did not retain its... And this is when Garrett's mouth stopped working. They were entirely dependent on the family Yeren for their continued rule. 2, if they did not retain a steady supply of mage stones, they would suffer the madness that the stones could bring about. But, so long as they kept the family Yeren well paid, and did them occasional political favors, they never wanted for the black crystals. Excuse me. And did them occasional political favors, they never wanted for the black crystals. On occasion, a wizard king would ascend to the throne and then attempt to break their dependence on mage stones. Few kings are fools, after all, and every one of them knew, more or less, that the family Yeren did not offer assistance out of any altruistic motive. But then the Yerens would act swiftly, uniting the other wizard kings to destroy whichever of them had tried to rebel. It was a perverted mirror of the relationship the High King has always had with their vassals, where obedience and control have been maintained by the threat of loyal kingdoms rallying against any usurper. Over 4 centuries of careful manipulation, the family Yeren amassed a power greater than any that has been seen in Underrealm before or since. It was not until the fearless decree of the High King Andriana in the year of Underrealm 772 that wizards were outlawed from seating any throne, and the days of the wizard kings came to an end. From seating any throne, and the days of the wizard kings came to an end. Though mage stones had become an inextricable part of Underrealm's culture and economy, the power of the family Yeren nonetheless began to wane, for they could no longer move their most valuable goods in the open, but had to resort to smuggling them. Still, there were many wizards who would defy the king's law, even as stone-eaters became more and more reviled through the years. And others would deceive wizards, feeding them the stones in secret until they lusted for them, and then controlling them with threats to remove the supply. Such conspirators also did their parts to keep the Yeren coffers full, and thus Yeren remained the wealthiest and most powerful of all the merchant families, long after the days of the Dark Wars. Section break, 2 seconds of silence. Damaris. By Underrealm's 12th century, the star of the family Yeren had reached its nadir. Near the end of the 13th century, they began to climb again. Still, they were forced to ply their most profitable trade in secret, but under the guidance of the matriarch Waviv, they began to make inroads among the mystic order. Many of the mystics in those days were dissatisfied with their lot as an order of peacekeepers, and sought for the first time to amass some sort of true power in the 9 kingdoms. The family Yeren supplied gold and information to some few of the Red Cloaks, who turned a blind eye to their dealings of mage stones, so long as the stones were not used in a way that harmed the mystics. In the year 1280, Damaris Yeren was born, only 3 years after Waviv took her place at the head of the family. Growing up, Damaris was fascinated by the political machinations of the 9 kingdoms. Ever she searched deeper and deeper for the secrets that lay behind each throne, each great family, for it seemed clear to her that Ever she searched deeper and deeper. Damaris was fascinated by the political machinations of the 9 kingdoms. Ever she searched deeper and deeper for the secrets that lay behind each throne, each great family, for it seemed clear to her that whoever held the most secrets held the most power. As she grew into adulthood and was entrusted with greater duties for the family, her thirst for information became a lust that could not be sated. Eh?
Machinations.
Machinations? Wait a minute.
Machinations.
Oh, apparently Machinations is the British version. So I'm going to stick with it. But thanks for the spot, 6-6. I appreciate that. Hey, Wordwin! Greetings! Her thirst for information became a lust that could not be sated. Her pursuit of secrets soon led her to one of the greatest secrets of all, the assassins of the family Drayden. Theirs was a dark and evil name, and it seemed clear to Damaris that the family Drayden was slowly growing in power. Few in the family Yeren were willing to admit this, but Damaris cursed them for fools. She resolved to find and speak with one of these assassins to learn more of them, if she could. When Damaris was not quite 18 years of age, her manservant Gregor caught a Drayden assassin who had been assigned to kill another member of her family. Damaris spared the assassin's life, and in return the woman taught Damaris all she knew of the arts of torture and interrogation. Knife, poison, coercion, these tools and more she mastered, and in practicing them she discovered a taste for pain that sometimes made her feel ashamed, but which she could not deny. After learning all she could, Damaris fulfilled her end of the bargain. All right, here we go. For pain that sometimes made her feel ashamed, but which she could not deny. After learning all she could, Damaris fulfilled her end of the bargain. She released the assassin, who carried out her mission and killed Damaris's cousin. But Damaris arranged to have the Drayden agent found and killed just after her mission succeeded, so that no Drayden ever learned what she had done, except for a man named Mako, whose tale is told elsewhere. With her newfound knowledge, Damaris soon became one of the most well-informed women in all the 9 kingdoms. In every land, every city, she acquired new knowledge that her victims had meant to take to their graves. She put every tidbit to terrible use, and soon her expeditions of trade had become the most successful of anyone in her clan. Indeed, the most successful the family had seen in centuries, ever since the Dark Wars. But with her success came ever greater ambitions. Waviv and the other elders in the clan saw this, and they were not pleased. Damaris came from a lesser branch of the family, and no matter her maneuverings, they never respected what they saw as her somewhat lower birth. What they saw as her somewhat lower birth. But while they may not have been willing to raise her above her station, neither did they wish to remove or punish her, for under her skilled hand, after all, the family's coffers filled to overflowing. Thus she was allowed to pursue her aims mostly as she wished, even while she was cut out of the greater machinations of her own family. It will be because of this particular freedom that she was, in the end, able to, even while she was cut out of the greater machinations of her own family. It was because of this peculiar freedom, laced with disapproval though it was, that Damaris first heard of a growing darkness across Underrealm. While traveling the northern reaches of Dorsey in the year 13 darkness across Underrealm. While traveling the northern reaches of Dorsey in the year 1311, she tracked an informant of the family Connell into the Birchwood Forest. After Gregor dragged him out again, Damaris brought him to a Yeren stronghold, and there she plied her skills upon him. After more than a decade, she had become most knowledgeable in the craft of interrogation. From her captive she learned of troop movements, and the From her captive she more than a decade. Why would I slip into Kermit voice? I'm not Kermit the Frog. He would not be narrating an Underrealm book. More than a decade, she had become most knowledgeable in the craft of interrogation. From her captive she learned of troop movements, and the locations of many Connell wizards, and some political maneuvers they had planned upon the seat. The family Connell was in the midst of attempting to secure the High King's favor, and Damaris wished to know Damaris wished to know of many Connell wizards and some political maneuvers they had planned upon the seat. The family Connell was in the midst of attempting to secure the High King's favor, and Damaris wished to know how and why. Again and again she brought the information. Nope. Once again, my brain and mouth have stopped working in coordination with each other. The High King's favor, and Damaris wished to know how and why. Again and again she brought the informant to the very edge of death, only to draw him back again. At last, when she believed she had learned all she could from him, she allowed him to cross the threshold into the darkness below. But then, with his dying breath, the man whispered a name. It was a name Damaris had never heard before, and that was something she could not abide. But the man died before she could inquire any further. The name remained on Damaris's mind ever after. At first she tried to put it aside, thinking it only the ravings of a dying man. But it gnawed at her when she lay alone in the dark. Somehow she knew it was important. Night after night she would pace the fine rugs of her home, whispering the name to herself. She mentioned it to no one, not even Gregor, for she wished for no one else living to know of it, in case they could use it against her. For she wished for no one else living to know of it, in case they could use it against her. But she repeated it to every fresh prisoner she drew into her dungeon, alone, when it was only the two of them, when no one else would hear, and just before she took their life at last. Time and again she was disappointed, for no one seemed to have heard it. Then at last she whispered it into the ears of a Calentin woman, and saw stark terror in her eyes. The woman languished under Damaris's knives longer than anyone had before her. Damaris extracted everything she could about the name, and then had it repeated thrice, and dug deeper to investigate any slightest variation in the tale. And she did not let the poor soul die until she had 2 more names, others who might know more. Things moved swiftly from there. Twice more she caught her flies, and twice more spun her webs about them. Soon she had learned enough of the name to send an envoy into the Great Rock Mountains. She half suspected the messenger would never return, but they did, with a summons. Soon she had learned enough of the name to send an envoy into the Great Rock Mountains. She half suspected the messenger would never return, but they did, with a summons. Thus Damaris herself met the mysterious stranger, whom those in the stronghold called the Lord, for the first time. And she learned of their plans, and for the first time in years her heart knew the touch of fear. She was granted leave to bring this matter before the heads of the family Yeren, not to tell them all, but to tell them enough. She proceeded at once to the city of Dahab in Feldamar, and there she demanded an audience with Waviv herself. But Waviv had grown tired of Damaris's schemes, which had grown more and more erratic as she searched for others who had heard the name. Therefore Waviv forced Damaris to speak with an envoy instead. Grinding her teeth at the insult, Damaris nevertheless passed on her information, wording it in such a way that she knew it would have the best chance at piquing Waviv's interest. Her scheme worked. Waviv at last granted a personal audience, where Damaris revealed as much information as she could. Revealed as much information as she could. In the end, she gave 2 ultimatums. The family Yeren must pledge itself to the service of the Lord, and they must at once sever all ties and alliances to the Order of the Mystics. At that, Waviv burst into uproarious, if croaking, laughter. Then, almost as swiftly, she grew wrathful. If Damaris had brought nothing better than dark elf tales meant for children, proclaimed Waviv, then she was to return to the seat and never leave it again. To abandon the mystics was madness, she said. Already some had begun to call them Berferschniffer. And never leave it again. To abandon the mystics was madness, she said. Already some had begun to call them the 10th Kingdom, and whoever drew swords in their service would surely conquer. In that moment, Damaris knew her clan was doomed. With false humility, she begged forgiveness and took her leave. Then she called together a council of the only ones she could trust in all the world. Gregor and Gretchen was doomed. With false humility, she begged forgiveness and took her leave. Then she called together a council of the only ones she could trust in all the world, Gregor and Gretchen and some other small few, and told them everything. Everything, not the half-truths she had brought to Waviv. Then they put their own plans in motion to save what they could. One small branch of the family Yeren that could be replanted and regrown after the rest of the tree had been cut down. And as her first step, she began to acquire as great a supply of mage stones as she possibly could. Section break. 2 seconds of silence. No, chapter break. Never mind. Woof! Okay, I'm going to take a short break before I come back and resume my work. We're moving along at a clip of about 5,000 words an hour, so that's pretty cool. Give me 10 minutes. And I'll be right back. I need to find a mouse pad in here because this mouse is ridiculous. Back in 10. Okay. We're back. Oh, that's not as good of a tea. Oh, I need to throw that away. Oh, God. Okay. 2 seconds of silence. No, chapter break. Never mind. No, that was a section break. 2 seconds of silence. Heh. Of the were-mage Auntie. Auntie was the child of a lesser merchant family. Of the were-mage Auntie. Auntie was the child of a lesser merchant family, and so her parents paid for her to undergo the trials at a young age. She was found to be a were-mage, which profoundly disappointed her parents, who refused to pay for her to attend the academy. What good would a were-mage be for selling and transporting grain? A fire-mage would have been far more useful. Would have been far more useful. So Auntie was left to her own devices to learn her magic as best she could. She despised her parents for depriving her of a magical education and never forgave them for it. Without instruction, she never learned to do more than change her appearance, and could never shift her form into anything other than human. Once she came of age, she found the mystics and joined them. They happily accepted her, for her magic made her invaluable as a spy. Her parents objected, of course, but the mystics issued a writ of privilege, a written order that releases a new recruit from all former ties if they will pledge themselves to the mystics for life. Auntie happily did so, though even at that early age she had no intention of remaining with them for all her days. Of remaining with them for all her days. Auntie was a sadist, even as a child, but where some, like Damaris of the family Yeren, enjoyed inflicting pain upon another's body, Auntie was fascinated by cruelty. Hers was the pleasure of the lover betrayed, of the child slapped without warning, of the innocent brought to harm by the person they trusted most. The mystics turned a blind eye to her tendencies so long as she kept to the king's law, but with the authority of the Red Cloak, she did not follow the law for very long. After a time, she had a sort of love affair with another mystic in her squadron, a man named Coven, who... But with the authority of the Red Cloak, she did not follow the law for very long. After a time, she had a sort of love affair with another mystic in her squadron, a man named Coven who was already wed. Some time after their trysts began, Auntie and Coven were assigned to track a rogue fire mage together. The fire mage was an abomination, an eater of mage stones. But in the course of their hunt, they discovered the fire mage was actually Coven's wife, who had been driven to madness at the discovery of his betrayal. In trying to capture her, Coven hesitated, for he could not force himself to hurt her. But his wife had no such hesitation, and killed him before narrowly escaping Auntie's clutches. Auntie was very strictly ordered to bring the woman in for questioning, as the mystics wished to learn where she had acquired her magestones. They had already investigated the family Yeren, who were not providing them in this case. In fact, the magestones came from a brigand who was making quite a living for himself attacking Yeren caravans and stealing their magestone cargo, then selling the product at deeply discounted rates to almost any wizard who would pay for them, until the family Yeren caught up with him not long after, and killed him quite slowly. And killed him quite slowly. Auntie accepted her orders, and then promptly disobeyed them. She tracked the fire mage down, but then appeared to her as Coven himself. This threw the fire mage into confusion and regret, and Auntie overpowered her, cutting her tongue out and thereby permanently removing her gift of magic. Auntie then tortured the fire mage to death over the course of weeks. Her ministrations were aided by the magestone withdrawal the woman suffered from. Auntie herself never partook of the magestones. She knew the terrible toll they took upon the body. But all the while, as she starved and cut and tormented the woman, she maintained the visage of her prisoner's dead husband. Moreover, Coven had whispered many of his wife's secrets to Auntie over the years, secrets only he could know. Auntie taunted the woman with these secrets, so that she believed her husband had somehow survived and was now taking his revenge. Thus she died in madness, pain, and misery. The mystics sought for and eventually found Auntie and tried to bring her before the king's justice, but Auntie evaded capture. She fled to Cabris, where she hid in the streets until the mystics abandoned their search. Then she set about her work. About her work. Her were-magic let her become a powerful thief, though her grasp of the magic was rudimentary. Excuse me. Let her become a powerful thief, though her grasp of the magic was rudimentary. Wearing the faces of others let her amass quite some coin and treasure. Soon pickpockets, thugs, and thieves throughout the city began to hear of her, and they flocked to her side. She made them call her their auntie, and her true name was lost to all, except mayhap some tome of record in a mystic stronghold in one of Underrealm's far corners. She was auntie, not only to her children, but to everyone. She kept the boys who came to her, uniting them into a force of thieves and robbers like the city had never seen before, and with their aid her wealth grew, though she never enjoyed it. The girls, when they reached a certain age, she took into the depths of the city's sewers, and they were never seen again. Rape is the most heinous of crimes in Underrealm, often euphemistically referred to as the king's harshest law. Its punishment is immediate execution. Yet Auntie found herself in command of a troop of boys who did not know the law, and who looked to her to guide them. And so she asserted her control over them in every way she knew how, including knowledge of their bodies without their consent. Her sadism made her enjoy it all the more, and she relished the look of terror, fear, and especially guilt in the eyes of her children. She became a twisted, vile, and hateful creature, and in her own way she was far more evil than any of the great villains who plagued Underrealm in those days. We had a bark in the background. I gotta go let Chewie out, because I don't know what he's barking at, but it's on the recording. Never mind, that was actually a neighbor dog. All right, let's try this. Oh, God. Are more evil than any of the great villains who plagued Underrealm in those days. Of all the girls who came under her sway, none ever escaped, except two. The second was Lauren of the family Nelda, of course. Her encounter with Auntie in Cabris is recounted in the Nightblade epic, and ended with Damaris slashing Auntie's throat in the bowels of the city sewers. The first girl to escape was the mind mage Theron, whose tale is told elsewhere. It is worth noting, however, that Auntie forever respected Theron for escaping her clutches. She even changed her more or less permanent appearance to match Theron's after the girl ran away. Olive brown skin and dark eyes, with dark hair that she often turned blonde, not with dye, but with her wear magic. Dark hair that she often turned blonde, not with dye, but with her wear magic. In this way, a part of Theron always remained in Cabris, even after she left it. And though Lauren thought that such was Auntie's natural look, she was mistaken, and did not see Auntie's true form before she herself fled the city. Chapter break. Chapter break. Oh, shit. Such Borf. Many Bork. No, that was a section break. 2 seconds of silence. Okay, B1. Chapter break. Chapter break. Addendum B. Calendar of Underrealm and a timeline of events. The Calendar of Underrealm. There are 363.5 days in an Underrealm year. In their calendar, these are divided into 12 months of 30 days each. To reconcile the extra days, at the end of each year there is a 3-day holiday called, appropriately enough, Year's End. It takes place in the middle of winter, when the world is coldest, and after which the world comes to life again. Year's End is often a time of celebration, when people of all the 9 kingdoms take to feasting and revelry, bidding farewell to the year that has ended and readying themselves to greet the year that approaches. Even-numbered years have leap days, placed in the middle of Year's End so that it is 4 days long in those years. For the sake of ease, the 12 months of the Underrealm calendar have been given their Latin names from the Gregorian calendar. However, they are arranged in the original order of the Gregorian calendar, with Martis being the first month of the year, as follows. Martis, being the first month of the year, as follows. Martis, winter. Aerilis, Maius, and Eunice, spring. Iulis, August, and Septis, summer. Octus, Novus, and Dectus, autumn. Janus, Febris, and Year's End, winter. Autumn. Janus, Febris, and Year's End, winter. Martis comes just after Year's End. As with any calendar, the assignment of seasons is arbitrary, and the people of Underrealm saw no reason to make them fit the calendar symmetrically. Therefore, winter stretches from Janus to Martis. Spring is Aerilis to Eunice. Summer lasts from Iulis to Septis, and autumn is from Octus to Dectus. In the strictest sense, then, the seasons do not truly fall where they are delineated on the Underrealm calendar. However, this assignment was seen as a neater solution than having the seasons begin and end in the middle of months, which would of course be chaotic and confusing to everyone involved. Section break, 2 seconds of silence. The count of years. The year of Underrealm 1 is the year Roth, the first High King of Underrealm, ruling from the city of Rothden on the island capital of Dolmoon, declared the 9 lands to be under his dominion. Though some scholars enjoy debating the exact count, it is generally accepted to have occurred 1,311 years before. For declared the 9 lands to be under his dominion. Though some scholars enjoy debating the exact count, it is generally accepted to have occurred 1,311 years before the events of Nightblade. Years are notated as the year of Underrealm 1312. Section break, 2 seconds of silence. Weeks. The 12 months of Underrealm are further divided into 3 weeks of 10 days. As we have done, the days were named for planets that the denizens of Underrealm could observe. But this presented a The 12 months of Underrealm are as we have done, the days were named for planets that the denizens of Underrealm could observe. But this presented a problem. Only 6 planets were visible in the sky. These were named Taia, Yuna, Kina, Marama, Dal, and Kasei in the time before time, and gave Underrealm the day names of Tazday, Yunsday, Kinsday, Marsday, Dalsday, and Kazday. 2 more days were named for Underrealm's twin moons of Enelin and Merida, giving them Linday and Meriday. The sun led to Sunday, as it did for us, and that was also the Underrealm day of rest. It is said that before humans came to Underrealm, the 10th day, which always preceded Sunday, had various names among different people. And so, when the first High King of Underrealm, Roth, founded the 9 lands, he named the 10th day after himself, calling it Roth's Day. Thus the days are, in order, Linday, Meriday, Tazday, Yunsday, Kinsday, Marsday, Dalsday, Kazday, Rothsday, and Sunday. Section break, 2 seconds of silence. The calendar of events in this book. The year of Underrealm 1312. 15 August. Lauren meets Zane and flees the birchwood after shooting her father in the leg with an arrow. 16 August. Zane abandons Lauren. She travels alone for a day. 17 August. The constables pursue Lauren, and she finds refuge in Damaris's caravan. 18 August. More constables arrive, and Damaris kills them. Lauren receives the black cloak. 19 August. Damaris continues Lauren's riding lessons. 21 August. Arrival at Cabris. Lauren and Annis flee. Lauren is captured by Byrne and Corin, but Corin releases her. She meets Jordell and refuses to speak to him of Zane. Jem steals from her, and she chases him down. He brings her to Auntie, who gives Lauren a job. But Auntie betrays Lauren and tries to hand her over to the constables. Lauren and Jem escape with Zane's help, then set off in the middle of the night to find Annis. It was an action-packed day. Escape with Zane's help, then set off in the middle of the night to find Annis. 22 August. Lauren meets Jordell again and again refuses his help. She and Jem find Annis, and together the three of them escape Gregor in the sewers. They try to sneak away from the inn with Zane, but Auntie attacks them and steals Lauren's dagger. They go to Zane's friend Marcus, who gives them shelter. Zane and Annis are smuggled from the city. Lauren and Jem try to steal the dagger from Auntie, but are unable to enter her hidey hole. Oh, I really don't like that tea. Ugh. Jem try to steal the dagger from Auntie, but are unable to enter her hidey hole. 23 August. Lauren finds Jordell again, and he gives her the idea to work with Damaris. Damaris agrees to join Lauren in retrieving her dagger if Lauren will in turn give her Annis. 24 August. Lauren and the family Yeren, together with constables, attack Auntie's home. They capture Auntie and bring her to the hidey hole. The trap triggers, gravely injuring Gregor. Lauren opens the door and retrieves her dagger, then flees Damaris's wrath as the merchant realizes she has been tricked. Lauren throws herself on the mercy of the king's justice and is placed in the constable's cell. 25 August. Damaris visits Lauren and interrogates her for Annis's location using a clouded viper. Lauren gives false information, but the viper bites her regardless. After Damaris leaves, Lauren kills the viper and escapes the cell as dawn breaks. Mad with snake venom, Lauren goes to Damaris's room at the inn and destroys her mage stones. Lauren goes to Damaris's room at the inn and destroys her mage stones. Jordell finds her and carries her to his friend Alin, an apothecary. 26 August. Lauren awakens to find Damaris has fled the city. She agrees to bring Jordell to Zane under the promise he not harm the wizard. Lauren, Jem, and Jordell ride from Cabris together, but cannot find Zane and Annis. They ride on for many days. 27 August. Damaris abandons her plans to ride the King's Road and strikes directly west across Selvin to the city of Blofeld, where her family has another plentiful supply of mage stones. Septis. City of Blofeld, where her family has another plentiful supply of mage stones. 2 Septis. Seth spots the trail of the mercenary army. Jordell investigates with Lauren. A mercenary scouting party captures Jem, and Jordell kills them to rescue the boy. They flee the mercenaries and ride south. 3 Septis. Zane wakes Lauren in the middle of the night. She and Jem flee with him and join Annis, then ride south. Damaris reaches Blofeld. 5 Septis. Lauren arrives at Redbrook. She sees Vivian for the first time. They meet Brimlad and secure passage west on his boat. Vivian discovers them and secures passage on the same boat. They retire to an inn but are discovered by agents of Yeren as they try to sleep. They escape, find Brimlad, and leave Redbrook heading west on the river. 13 Septis. After lengthy maneuvering, Damaris secures another caravan full of mage stones. She leads these through the westwood towards the Great Rock Mountains. Towards the Great Rock Mountains. 20 Septis. They spot Vivian's ship behind them. 22 Septis. Vivian reaches them. She and Zane battle upon the river. With the help of mage stones, Zane defeats her, leaving her ship stranded on the riverbank. 24 Septis. They reach Wellmont to find the city's river gates closed to them. Bubble the Wort finds them and offers his help. Brimlad departs, heading back towards Redbrook. Bubble and his brother Stream make a bowl to let them finds them and offers his help. Brimlad departs, heading back towards Redbrook. Bubble and his brother Stream make a bowl to let them under the river gate. Annis nearly drowns, but Lauren rescues her, nearly drowning herself. They find an inn and stay the night. 25 Septis. Lauren tries to steal the coin of the woodsman Gillum. He discovers her, and constables take her and Zane. In the constable's station, they find Jordell and Vivian waiting for them. Jordell tries to convince Zane to join him. The wizard refuses, but agrees to speak more the next day. Burpin'. Wizard refuses, but agrees to speak more the next day. 26 Septis. Zane takes counsel with Jordell. Afterward, he agrees to follow the mystic, but will not tell Lauren what Jordell revealed to him. Before they can leave Wellmont, Dorsey attacks. Jordell tries to get them all out of the city, but the guards will not open the gates. Zane, Lauren, and the children aid in the defense of Wellmont. After the battle, Zane, Lauren, and the children aid in the defense of Wellmont. After the battle, Zane kidnaps Annis and vanishes with her. Distraught, Lauren joins Jordell to hunt for the wizard. 27 Septis. Jem finds Zane and Annis in a riverboat. Lauren sneaks aboard and finds the wizard suffering from magestone sickness, though she does not recognize the symptoms. She breaks her pledge to Jordell and helps Zane escape the city. Zane uses Darkfire on 3 Dortian ships upon the river. They leave the riverboat and head north, and encounter the mercenary army camped northwest of Wellmont. Lauren sneaks in and cuts free all the mercenaries' horses, stealing a horse in the process, which she will later name Midnight. 28 Septis. Lauren returns to find Annis tied up and Zane gone with their magestones. Together the girls ride after him, catching him Lauren returns to find Annis tied up and Zane gone with their magestones. Together the girls ride after him, catching him shortly before daybreak. Jordell and Vivian find them soon after. Mercenaries appear on the horizon, and they all must ride east to escape. They encounter the second mercenary army on the road. Zane strikes down the outriders with Darkfire, and then kills Vivian's mystics. Vivian escapes, barely alive. Lauren subdues Zane, then pledges herself to Jordell. Together they bundle Zane atop a horse and ride north. 29 Septis. After an incident, 2 riders flee the fighting at Wellmont and strike out east across Dorsey's southern? Bundle Zane atop a horse and ride north. 29 Septis. After an incident, 2 riders flee the fighting at Wellmont and strike out east across Dorsey's southern reaches. 30 Septis. Lauren stops for the night in a cluster of trees, and Jordell reveals to her the history of her dagger. 2 Octus. Lauren's party reaches Strappa. They leave Zane tied in the woods, then enter the town and buy a room for the night. While getting supplies, they visit Alburn's shop, and Lauren purchases a new bow. 3 Octus. Lauren's party meets Derek, Jordell's friend and a fellow mystic. While getting supplies, they visit Alburn's shop, and Lauren purchases a new bow. 3 Octus. Lauren's party meets Derek, Jordell's friend and a fellow mystic, at the stables. He betrays them to his fellows, who try to capture them. They defeat the mystics and escape with Alburn's help. They retrieve Zane and ride north, reaching the foothills of the Great Rocks. 4 Octus. Lauren's party leaves the foothills and enters the mountain pass that spans the Great Rocks. 8 Octus. Lauren's party comes down into the valley for the first time. A rainstorm begins. They take a route back up into the mountains, at Alburn's advice that it is faster than riding the valley floor. 12 Octus. Lauren's party encounters a rock slide that stops their progress. They turn back for the valley floor. 15 Octus. Lauren's party reaches the valley floor again. Her birthday passes without her noticing it. Happy birthday, Lauren. Reaches the valley floor again. Her birthday passes without her noticing it. 21 Octus. Again, Jordell chooses to take a faster path up into the mountains. 23 Octus. Damaris reaches northwood as the sun sets. 24 Octus. Damaris sends a small trading party into Northwood to keep up the appearance of her caravan, but she sends most of her wagons into the mountains towards Triskin's stronghold. 26 Octus. Lauren first encounters the satyrs. Alburn talks his way through the encounter. They ride hard all that day and through the night, then camp for a day. 27 Octus. They ride hard all that day and through the night, then camp for a day. 27 Octus. Alburn begins to teach Calentan bowcraft to Lauren. Jordell begins to teach swordcraft to Jem. 28 Octus. Lauren sets off on the road again. That night, while she is on watch, Zane slips his bonds and strikes her unconscious. 29 Octus. Jordell teaches Lauren to track wizards using her dagger. They trap Zane in a satyr cave and capture him, sealing the cave as they escape. Jordell reveals to them Zane's history with the Lord Prince Eamon. 30 Octus. Lauren knows the tale is not complete and asks Jordell for more. He reveals that his sister is Zane's beloved, and Zane's son his nephew by blood. They come to a road that crosses above the valley. Satyrs attack them as they try to cross it, forcing them to ride further north instead. Albern tells them of the stronghold to the north. They first encounter harpies. Tells them of the stronghold to the north. They first encounter harpies. 1 Novice. They try to climb the mountains to avoid the fortress. The harpies attack, forcing them back to the north road. 2 Novice. They reach the valley floor and try to leave the road, heading east. Again the harpies attack, this time joined by satyrs, and they are forced back to the road again. Jordell asks Lauren to feed Zane that night, and the wizard apologizes for his actions, though Lauren does not trust him. 4 Novice. Lauren's party reaches the stronghold. Jordell recognizes it as a mystic fortress. No one meets them at the gate. They hide in the mountain's caves. Lauren sees Damaris's caravan arrive at the stronghold. Jordell shows Lauren the secret entrance, and they sneak into the stronghold. Lauren sees Triskin for the first time. What's up, Dredd? It is indeed a recording studio. Imagine that. And they sneak into the stronghold. Lauren sees Triskin for the first time. She sneaks into the great hall and spies on Triskin's meeting with Damaris. Shades find Albern, Jem, and Annis in the caves. Lauren and Jordell arrive to help. They fight Triskin and kill him, but he rises again, his wounds healed. Lauren's party escapes into the stronghold's secret entrance. 5 Novice. Lauren and the others sneak into the fortress once again. Lauren steals 2 packets of mage stones. They set fire to Damaris's caravan. Lauren escapes with Albern, but Jordell and Jem are captured. Excuse. By the way, obviously massive spoilers for the series, just in case that wasn't already very clear. Lauren escapes with Albern, but Jordell and Jem are captured. 6 Novice. Lauren escapes the stronghold with the others, but they are hounded upon the road, and satyrs and harpies corner them in a cave. Lauren gives Zane a mage stone, and he casts down the harpies and satyrs. They return to the fortress. Upon the road they meet Damaris, who asks Annis to come home. Annis denounces her. They reach the stronghold, and Zane defeats the Shade army. In the fortress they find Jordell and Jem alive. Triskin stops them as they try to escape. They defeat Triskin, but Jordell dies in the battle. They bury Jordell's body, and Zane inscribes his epitaph on the stones of the bridge. Zane rejects the mage stones, flinging them to the valley floor. Lauren withholds from him that she has another packet of the stones. 12 Novice. They reach Northwood and Mag's Inn. Albern tells them he plans to leave them. Lauren finds Chet in a tavern. He reveals to her that her father died from the arrow she shot him with when she left the Birchwood. Okay, another chapter done and another hour complete, so I'm going to take another quick break. And I will return in a mo. Be right back. Oh my gosh, yo. I totally forgot. And I apologize for this. Oh crap, I'm not in the booth. Hold on. Okay, try this again. How do stream? What is Twitch? What are Twitch? I forgot that I have to go pick up the kids from school today, which means that I can't just sit here and stream and record until they get home. So I have to end stream now to go do that. So we're going to throw a raid at somebody's face. So go say hi to Little Sparks for me. She appears to be that's right. She's working on the Muradin Bronzebeard cosplay, and it looks super cool and awesome. So go tell her how awesome she is and how awesome her stuff looks, and I will catch you on stream tomorrow morning. Okay, bye.